My guest today is Mark Cuddy, Artistic Director of GEVA Theatre Center here in Rochester, New York. Thanks for coming in, Mark.
Oh,
Great
fantastic.
To see you.
Good to see you.
Great to hear. So now, GEVA Theatre Center is a real institution for our whole region.
It is. It is. It's our 43rd season.
43rd season.
I know. I know. It doesn't feel like this is my 21st season, but sometimes it feels like I've been there 43 years.
Your 21st as Artistic Director.
It is, yes.
That's phenomenal.
Yes. No, we're really blessed. You know, we're in a great building. We've been in the building now just about 31 years in the old New York State Arsenal building, protecting the southwest part of downtown Rochester from those rampaging Canadians. And so far, it's done a good job. We haven't been attacked.
So it's a historic facility.
It is. It is. It did train a little bit some of the arsenals in the latter part of the 19th century. They got changed into the Rochester Convention Center. It was the sort of hub.
Oh, it was the hub.
It was. It lots of not only conventions, but great speakers. 4 presidents spoke there. FDR was one of his favorite places.
I had no idea.
Yeah, he actually announced the Social Security Act on the steps of the Arsenal building, the convention center, and lots of the orchestras played there. And before there was the Eastman Theater, and, it was quite a place. And then in the mid 20th century, turned into the Naval Armory to do some things for World War II. And then was just storage until we took it over 30 years ago.
Oh, well, what's great about Rochester and this region in general that they repurpose historic buildings like this, put them to good use, like the Eastman House.
It's really fantastic, and as we should. I mean, it's great that we do, but we absolutely should, because it's living history, and just like theater, theater goes back thousands of years, but it's an ephemeral art form, and we do it and then it's gone, but what's there is the social gathering place, and that's really important.
Now, the Theater Center, I think most people would be impressed to learn, is the largest theater, reaching the largest audience outside of New York City.
Yeah, it
is.
In
the Northeast.
It is. It's an astonishing tribute to our community. We have the largest attendance base of any producing theater. We don't bring in the national tours, so so that's which are presenting houses of a couple of thousand seats. But as a producing theater, we produce all of our own work from scratch, and as the producing theater, we're the most attended in all of Northeast outside of Manhattan.
That is remarkable.
No, it is, and we. That's grown over time, of course. Didn't happen right away, but it's been that way for the last 10 years or so. And we have over 10,000 season subscribers.
10,000 subscribers.
Which, again, is just a phenomenal number, but it's a real tribute to not only the community, but the people who want to support. And we're blessed around this area for having terrific symphony, terrific museums, theater company, and so
public radio.
Public radio. No, don't want to stop short of that. Absolutely, a great independent movie house in downtown Rochester, the Little Theaters, a great dance company, Garth Fagan Dance, known worldwide. So, and here we are, just a small Midwestern city, and we are Midwestern.
How about that?
I think we're basically southern Canada, so we're you can say we're a Great Lakes city, and that would be true as well. But we're small.
Now, do your audiences subscribe from the region in general, or where are they coming from?
Yeah, we're pretty much within a 45-minute to an hour. Is the base. I mean, we certainly get other people, but because they're subscribers, they put it on their calendar and they attend. I guess you could also say that the audience around here are joiners, because to be a subscriber, you have to commit. But I think that goes in line with the great nature of the quality of life, and that people love living up here, and they love to raise families here, and they there's a commitment to the community here, and that you can't be a subscriber to something 12 months out unless you are really committed to a way of life here. And so we're the beneficiary of that as well.
So it's called the GEVA Theatre Center. What does that comprise?
Yeah, that's a great question. It used to be GEVA Theatre, and we added the word center, I don't know, about 10 years ago, when people didn't quite realize the extent of our programming. Most people say, "Oh, right, I come to the main stage, you know, the Elaine P. Wilson main stage, and I see a big show on a Saturday night, and then I go, well, that's great, and that's the sort of center of our artistic work. But we have 2 stages in the building. We have the Wilson stage, which is 525 seats, and we have the Fielding stage, which is 180 seats. We opened the Fielding in the year 2000, so it is 15 years old, and still we have subscribers to the Wilson who have never trotted the 15 yards down the path to go into the Wilson. And between the 2 theaters, we have over 500 performances or events a year.
500 a year.
Which of course drives that attendance number, because we're not only full productions, but we have 28 different educational programs, many of whom are part of the 2 stages. We are a social center and a community center for a lot of other events. We host local companies, sometimes theater companies, dance companies. We have a very vibrant new play development program. We do lots of readings and workshops. We do premieres on the productions on the main stage or the second theater, but we also just do developmental work. We just had a 2-week Festival of New Theater where we brought in actors and writers from around the country to work on their new plays. And so, it's a very, very, very active building.
And is there a social space as well?
Yeah, we have a cafe and a bar. They're all getting renovated in the summer of 2016.
Oh, that's a big project.
It's a big project, and so they'll be even better. Theater going, Eric, has become more of a social activity, not just exclusively a cultural activity, especially for people under 35.
I see.
They want to go to do something with their friends. That's what they will do. They could go to an art museum, they could go to a concert, they could go to a movie, they could go to a theater production, but it has to be part of their social experience. It's not just, oh, this is good for me, I want to see a play that was in New York, and it's that's a minority. But for most part, it's how can I interact with people? And so part of our renovation is to create better spaces for that sort of social.
Fantastic.
Better cafe, better bar. It's okay to have a drink in the intermission or after the show or something like that. Talk about the show. We want to have people talk.
Interact.
Conversation is so important to theater going. I always say that if you're just paying a ticket price to go to see a 2-hour show, and if it's only lasting 2 hours, that's a lot of money to pay for 2 hours.
Well, yeah.
But what you should be able to do is take that experience and share it with one person or other, and have you talk about it, and relive it, and think about it, and so that it lasts a very long time. We try to make memorable productions so that people are still talking about it.
And keeps the role of that building in Rochester as the hub for
it is.
Creative.
It is. It's really the center, and now that we're with the attendance numbers, we are really the center. We're called, the New Yorkers would call us a regional theater, meaning we serve a region that's outside of New York. Everything across the Hudson is regional, they're all the regions.
True.
But we serve not only the sort of Western New York, the eastern part of Western New York around Rochester, but the sister regional theater in Buffalo went bankrupt about 8 years ago. It was Studio Arena Theater, and they had been around for much longer than we had been around. They went bankrupt, so they're no longer. Over in Syracuse, there's Syracuse Stage, which is still functioning, which is another regional theater, much like us, but they are as part of the Syracuse University. They're on the campus. They're professional, but they are sort of programmed and funded by the university. We're independent. And we're not connected to any of the universities. We make or break ourselves. It's a business. We run a nonprofit cultural business, and we are nonprofit though, so we raise $2 million a year in annual funds.
My, oh my.
So we have a $7 million budget, $5 million is what we call earned, meaning ticket sales and concessions and anything that, rentals, that sort of thing. And then we have to raise another $2 million just in contributions from individuals and businesses and foundations and government.
So they really have to be finding value in what you're offering them.
We have to be a citizen, a really good citizen of the community, or else, we're not fulfilling our nonprofit status as well.
I see.
And the money stays in our community. When touring shows come through, and I'm a big fan of big Broadway musicals, but those are for-profit commercial ventures that run out of New York, and they come in and they will sell several $100,000 worth of tickets, and 90% of that goes back to New York. I mean, it goes out. They go on to the next city and sees the same thing. For us, we custom build everything, every show. We cast out of New York the best actors, but we rehearse it in Rochester. We build the scenery in Rochester, the costumes, the props.
That's remarkable.
We have 50 people working full time. At GEVA, and then another 200 working part-time, and then that's not counting all the actors and directors and the set designers, costume designers, all the guest artists. So it's a big economic driver too for downtown.
Now, housing guest artists must be a challenge if they're coming from New York City, for instance, and they're here a month or 6 weeks.
Right. Yes, it's a great question because they are here roughly 2 months when you count rehearsal and performance.
Right.
It's 3 to 4 weeks of rehearsal and it's 4 to 5 weeks of performance. And thankfully, they probably don't have, if they're actors, they're probably not living in luxury apartments in New York City. They're tiny little places. But we just partnered with a developer right in the next block to GEVA, downtown Rochester, this past year, and he redeveloped an older building.
Phenomenal.
Several older buildings, and we went into a long-term lease for new studio lofts, beautiful contemporary loft apartments, and we're actually just worked out a deal to purchase them. So we will own 14 guest artists, beautiful, brushed concrete new fixtures, high industrial windows. I mean, really like urban loft apartments.
Fantastic.
And they're 150 steps to GEVA, so they're right there.
Easy walking.
They're right there,
especially after rehearsals late.
So that's part of attracting, because it's hard to attract people in the wintertime up here.
It has to be a quality gig.
It has to. They get them out of New York. They could work one day on Law and Order and make as much as a month up here. So we have to have the facilities good for them and take good care of them. And they're they're gypsies. Actors are going from one place to another, and it's a hard life.
Right. Now, your professional background is in stage direction, is that?
It is.
And do you direct productions yourself?
I do. I do. So I do 2 or 3 of the productions a year. We produce right now about 10 of our own, and then we bring in a few other guest productions. So I do 2 or 3 of them. I also do the annual A Christmas Carol, which is my stage adaptation. So I wrote the script, and one of our longtime associate artists, who's a composer, wrote all new music.
Fantastic.
And I kind of envisioned how this whole thing was, and there's video and flying and elevators and there's all sorts of it's an extravaganza, and that's an annual offering which
people can watch for that.
People traditionally come, and it's a little scary, which is great. And all the kids the few points of with Jacob Marley is how they get scared, and then they feel great the next year that I'm not scared this year. And, it's fun. I really enjoy
Well, also
it.
you have an annual offering of the Christmas Carol, and then what's the overall profile in it? As your role, do you balance the work so that there's good variety? And
the balance is the right verb, because we're being the largest theater, and really the only full-time professional theater in Rochester. We have to have a pretty good range of work to serve our constituency, which is so large. So our spectrum's pretty big, but of course, once you go a little this way, you have to go a little this way. We try to balance it all is really important. And We do contemporary plays. We do, you know, 1 or 2 classics. We do well-known and unknown. We do premieres. We just try to find the flow because we are a subscribed theater. It's a journey always from September to June. You know, how can we take people through? What's the okay, we open with Spam-A-Lot, but then we're going to play about Mark Rothko painting Red, you know, and then we're going to do a Buffalo family comedy, and then we're going to, you know, so it really varies, and we try to find the right flow through the year.
Now, is there musical theater there also, or is it pretty much?
Well, we do one big musical.
One big musical.
Right, so we did Spam-A-Lot this past season, and the season before, hand was Little Shop of Horrors, and you know, we've done Stephen Sondheim musicals. We do one big musical, and there's music in A Christmas Carol. But other than that, it's probably more plays, comedies, histories, dramas.
So a nice balance, and some things you can look for every year.
Yes, and so there's different genres we balance, different tones, different size, different topics, you know, and yeah, and we try to, again, try to have conversation. We do something that is unique to GEVA is we do a pre-performance talk about the show before every single performance in the Wilson main stage. So if the curtain time is 7:30, at 6:30 for a half an hour, you can come early and someone will give you some background, some context about the writer, about the production, about the actors, and it's a great way to kind of ease out of your day into getting ready to see a performance. It's another way of, we try to enhance it so you get as much out of the performance as you possibly can.
So there's some curatorial content and a little bit of context.
Exactly, a lot of context. I started that at another theater 25 years ago before I arrived here, and we were doing a Shakespeare. It was out in California, and I was running a theater in Sacramento, and we were doing a Shakespeare play, and I was worried about it because it wasn't a Shakespeare-only theater. It was just like this, a regional theater, smaller, but it was, well, we did a wide range, and I'm like, gosh, I can't expect my audience to be really up on what this is about and what this Shakespeare is about and what to look for and how to understand some of the concepts and language. I said, well, we should maybe do some sort of a talk, and it was so successful. We had half the audience would show up ahead of time. It was, oh, well, maybe we should just do it for every show, and it becomes up to a third of the audience shows up an hour early, gets their little cup of coffee or their glass of wine, and brings it in, sits, and starts to get into what they're going to see.
That's phenomenal. And so, you know, I noticed on your roster of artists as I was checking into this that you have a dramaturg.
Yes.
And people just don't know what a dramaturg does. So what is a dramaturg? I happen to know her. She's
that's always the question, you know, even within what the heck? Well, it's a German word, and we were just talking about context, but the dramaturg would provide historical context, artistic context for the play, provide those materials, do the research. Say we're doing To Kill a Mockingbird. Okay, so all the historical research around the time, setting, the author, and provide that for the director, and then do a packet up for all of the actors and the designers so that they can you know, breeze through and understand more deeply what it is that they're performing. The dramaturg also for new plays will be the playwright's sort of eyes and ears and trying to help midwife the writing along and give responses and try to be objective and you know, because those go through drafts and draft and draft. So there's historical contextual dramaturgy, and then there is new play dramaturgy.
And not just for the audience, but for the creative
team
as well.
It's primarily for the artists.
Primarily for the creative team.
Yes, and then they'll write an article for the play, for the program or something like that for the audience, but it's primarily so that we're understanding fully what we're working on.
Get everybody on the same page, especially with the language.
Yeah, because you know, you can't, there's such a wide range of work.
All the cultural implications.
Absolutely, and it's a fascinating, and it's opened up a job, an industry for those people who are perhaps want to work in the background, you know, aren't performers, but are they don't consider themselves maybe playwrights, but they are very interested in plays and structure and history and they write well, and where do they fit in the theater world?
I see.
Well, they fit in as a support, as a the sort of the brains behind everything, and I depend upon them, and all directors do.
Right.
We do our own research, but we know if something comes up, what's the origin of that, or what were TV interviews really like in the early 50s? What kind of questions, what could you say and what couldn't you say? Can you do some research on that? So they'll go down and do the research, and come back and say, well.
So if you have all of that material in advance of your work as stage director, what's your creative process? The actors are here for 2 months, but you've started long ahead of
about
that.
6 months. It takes about 6 months to really put the production together. You can be thinking about it earlier than that, and you certainly read the play over and over and fully understand, and start reading books or biographies around the subject or around the writer. But the design process, working with your set designer and your costume designer, that's probably a 4-month process to get designs just the way you like it. I mean, most people come into the theater and they think, oh, of course, that's the set for that show. Well, it doesn't have to be. I mean, we actually create it. Every production is new, and there are some choices that are perhaps dictated by the script, but no set design comes with a script. So you hire those artists to create your vision of a kitchen in a working class neighborhood in Buffalo. Well, they sit around a kitchen table. Okay, there's a kitchen table, and there's probably a sink and but where that happens, what the look is, what the colors are, that's all created.
That's brilliant. And so if you have all of that to back time from your production, how far in advance are you working on the next season's productions and the sequence and balance?
So we spend the fall thinking about the following fall, winter, spring. And we announce in March what the next September to May and June season is. So we pretty much have a draft of a season by the first of the year, the December 31st, January 1st, we have a draft. It's then budgeted, and we're always working up against the costs and the potential revenue, and then we announce in March. And once we announce, we start hiring artists and doing auditions and getting all that ready for September opening.
I see.
Yeah, so you're working. It's not opera where you're working 2, 3, 4, 5 years in advance.
True.
But you're still you're working on the following season, and you're not even halfway through the current season.
Yeah.
So as an ongoing conversation with your subscribers and your audience, you haven't even gotten the response of how this season is going, so that you can start to shift or make some reactions to. So you're trying to keep your ear to the ground about how things are landing, but you're a little bit in advance. And then if you're working on some new plays that have developmental periods, you're trying to assess, will that new project be really ready for production in that following year, or I think it'll be ready in 12 months, but in 6 months we better do another workshop of it, and you're kind of rolling the dice,
See.
But when we announce a season, it's all we have is our plays, and on paper we don't have full productions. We're just saying, and we do that great sort of leap of faith with our subscribers. They sign up for next year, and there are no productions yet. They're just titles and words on a page. Okay, we haven't made it yet, but we'll make it for you. If you sign up. Yeah.
Well, now, you mentioned that the creation of new works is important. Now, how about the development of actors themselves? Is that happening here?
We, through our training program and our education programs, we have lots of ways in terms of students to get certified. We don't have a full classes and a full school, but we have lots of workshops within schools. And then in the summer, we do something called Summer Academy, which is 30 students, ages 12 to 18, it's a real mix, that audition and interview to get into the Summer Academy. And we do a conservatory training for them for 5 weeks, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
My, a full-time job, really.
Full-time commitment, and it's transformational for those kids because we have big faculty for it, and there's lots of personal attention. And they're in that vulnerable, they're 12, 13, 14, 15. It's ages 12 to 18.
Oh my.
And so it's you know, they're finding out about themselves, who they are. And for many kids, they're finding that this is where they belong. They find a group that they fit into. Often theater kids don't fit into other groups, you know. Maybe they're not athletes, or maybe they're not the best in school in their academic, or maybe they're not the cool kids, or but they're theater kids, and they find that out. And we do a lot of confidence building, and we find that these kids gain skills that they can apply to anywhere and for anything. And then we have college relationships. We teach actually at SUNY Brockport, but we have relationships with the University of Rochester and Nazareth and SUNY Geneseo, and so we do a lot of mentoring and internships from those. And then, you know, when we're hiring a young actor, when they're out in the world, and if we hire a young actor, I always say that casts are led by the leading actors. They're not led by directors, right? So if you put together a cast of 10 people, the director doesn't run it. It's like a team, like a professional team.
Yes.
You've got to have the leaders on the team set the tone.
Got it.
And be able to, you know, in a professional sports team, maybe it's policing. They're doing their own policing in the locker room kind of thing. But it's like that, you know. You want the tone set and the discipline set by your leading actors. And so we have a lot of young actors who learn by having smaller roles and being around, you know, veteran actors.
Some of them who can really carry the water.
Yeah, and they find out what it's like to actually show up every day, do 8 great performances a week, you know, be on time, all that stuff. Yeah, it is.
Tough, a lot of memorization.
Well, it is, and you know, that's part of the discipline, but it's also being ready to go. I mean, you know, like anything, being ready to rehearse, just like a sports team, an athlete got to be ready to practice. You know, it's your game performance is only based on your practices. Your show performance is really only based on your rehearsal. You just can't, you know, it's the same thing. I think so.
Now, there's a good network of theaters in Rochester and the region. How does GEVA Theater Center fit into that, like Theater Rocks?
Sure, Theater Rocks, that's great, yeah. Well, you know, being the largest theater, we try to be a leader in that and to help and support. And we have great colleagues across there. And I love the ecology of theaters in a community. And it's important to have all levels and all sizes, and from amateur to semi-professional to professional. And I think there's a very, very good base of talented people who want to live up here and maybe aren't going the professional route because they can't make a living if they're only a professional actor, for example. So they do semi-professional and amateur, but they have great discipline and they have great talent. And it's, you know, so we try to be a really good citizen of the theater ecology as well.
Now, if people are interested in more about GEVA Theater Center, how do they find you? Where do they learn more?
Yeah, well, of course, we have our great website, which is not GEVAtheatercenter.org, but it's GEVAtheater.org.
And that's probably T-H-E-A-T-R-E, is that
It's
right?
R-E at the end. I know, en français. I don't know why, it's just is.
Daniel Webster aside.
It is, I know it is. So it's TRE.org.
And
we have lots of stuff. It's a great way to connect with us. And of course, we have a Facebook page and we have Twitter accounts, and we do it all. Whatever it is that we have Instagram, we have our YouTube channels, all of that.
Mark, thank you so much for being my guest. Mark Cuddy, Artistic Director of GEVA Theater Center.